Now it's time for our reading from the Gospel of John. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now, there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. This is the word of the Lord.
So that nothing will be lost. Our scripture for today is John 6, 1 through 13, the feeding of the 5,000, a miracle where Jesus turns scarcity into abundance. This is a familiar story to many of us. After a lot of healing, a lot of clashing with the Pharisees, Jesus just needs a break and crosses the Sea of Galilee to a desolate place. He goes up a mountain with his disciples, but the crowds follow him. It's late in the day, and Jesus realizes that the people are hungry. He asks his disciples, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" Philip focuses on what little money they have. Andrew focuses on what little food they have. Only one little boy offers to share what he has. And for Jesus, this is enough. Jesus says to his disciples, "Make the people sit down." Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus gives thanks and then distributes the food. At the end of the feast, when the people could not eat another bite, Jesus says to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost." Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. With this statement, Jesus could have been addressing one of the most significant environmental problems we face in this country. A crisis hardly anyone is talking about: food waste. As an example, let's assume my family of 3 acts like an average American family. One Sunday afternoon, I'm doing my grocery shopping for the week. I got my buggy and I'm walking down the aisles. I don't have meals planned out, nor do I have an extensive grocery list. As I'm shopping, I notice a sale on ground chicken, too good to pass up, so I get 2 packs. Then I see Fresh Express salad mix, 2 for 1. I can't decide between Thai peanut or Southwest Chipotle ranch, so I just buy both. And I get 2 bags of each because 1 doesn't seem like enough food for my family of 3. I bring my groceries home, put them where I can find room in the fridge or pantry. I make 2 bags of Thai peanut salad for dinner that night. It's too much, so I throw away a lot of it. I'm busy that week, so we eat out more than I expected. I do bring home the food we couldn't eat because the portions were too large at the restaurant. But by the weekend, I realize the sell-by date on the ground chicken was yesterday, the best-by dates on the salad packs is past, and I haven't touched the styrofoam container of leftovers. I'll throw it all in the trash. I know that Jesus said gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. But does my wasting all this food really matter? According to the most recent U.S. Department of Agriculture study on food waste, over 1 month, an average family of 3 throws away more than 70 pounds of food at a cost of $100. I found those numbers hard to believe, but found 3 different sources to back them up. Only 5% of uneaten food is composted, making it the single largest component of municipal solid waste, taking up 22% of our landfills. Food waste is among the leading causes of freshwater pollution. And in the overall cycle of food production, from the farm to the table, more than 25% of all freshwater consumption in the US each year is spent producing food that's never eaten. And if we're talking about contribution to climate change, in landfills, food waste decomposes and forms methane gas. Tremendous energy is wasted in growing and transporting food that does not get eaten. The United Nations says if global food waste were a country, it would be the number 3 greenhouse gas emitter in the world, just behind the US and China. Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. The organization Feeding America is the second largest charity in the US after the Red Cross. In its mission to end hunger, Feeding America devotes considerable resources to rescuing surplus food from farmers, manufacturers, grocery stores, and restaurants. Yet this massive organization does not have the resources to take on the worst perpetrators of food waste: consumers, households, you and me. By buying food to have around instead of planning out meals, by allowing foods to spoil, by not understanding sell-by dates, and by cooking portions that are too large, we, the consumer, are responsible between 40 and 50% of food waste. Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. Once I understood the environmental problem of food waste, I knew that I had to take action in my home. Here are a few things I'm doing. I've changed how I grocery shop. I've started meal planning and making detailed grocery lists. I organized my fridge and pantry to bring the oldest ingredients to the front. A few times a week, I use leftovers for my own chop challenge, just like the TV reality show. I'm also composting. I have a stainless steel pail on the counter in my kitchen. Every couple days, I throw that food waste into a Vitamix food cycler that dries it, blends it, and then bakes it, turning into a soil nutrient. I'm adding that to fertilize my garden, and I'm gonna get old school Southern and can the extra vegetables and tomatoes I have this summer. Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. Individual efforts are vital to solving this crisis, but our nation needs a group to lead the charge in reducing food waste at the household level. Churches are well equipped for this effort. Why should they get involved? Already, many churches work actively to reduce food insecurity with food drives, food banks, and food pantries. Many congregations also care deeply about climate change and other environmental issues, such as clean water and land. In conjunction with food pantries, churches should connect congregants and community members. The church could offer classes open to everyone on meal planning, with opportunities for those to shop recipes and swap ideas about how to use leftovers. Churches could provide information on best practices for food storage, understanding sell-by dates, and even composting. 2 websites, feedingamerica.org and refed.com, have other helpful suggestions for reducing food waste as we strive to take better care of God's creation. As Jesus said, gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. Beyond this important lesson in ecology, Jesus' command to his disciples underscore the central message of the miracle that he performed. In times of scarcity, your God is not about just enough. Your God is one of abundance. The last 4 years have been plagued by a scarcity mentality. COVID has just made it worse. At different times, we faced the lack of toilet paper, paper towels, meat, eggs, milk, pasta, pasta sauce, cans of soup, and now we struggle to get the vaccine. Scarcity was trumpeted at the highest levels in our nation. You were either a winner or a loser. If any other person or group got something, it had to have come from me, my group of people, my tribe. Others are responsible for the mess we're in. Pushing this scarcity doctrine has resulted in a dangerous us versus them mentality that has led to anger, hate, violence. In the story of feeding the 5,000, Jesus invites us to change the way that we view the world and each other. Jesus saw that those in the crowd started to worry about the lack of food in that desolate place. He recognized their hunger, and he challenged his disciples to do something about it. Philip focused on what little money they had. Andrew piped in and focused on what little food they had. I think about the little boy who came forward with his 5 loaves and 2 fish. Did he have a parent or older sibling with him? I can imagine they tried to stop him from giving up what he had. I can hear the crowds grumbling, mumbling, their stomachs rumbling. Everyone is concerned there won't be enough. But then in verse 10, we see a pivot in the story, a dramatic change in the focus of the disciples and the crowds. Jesus tells everyone to sit down on the grass, and they do. That's the shocking part of this story. It's late, they're far away from everywhere. If they don't leave now, not only will they go hungry, but they'll likely have to stay the night in that desolate place. Yet the people sit down. They no longer see scarcity, but trust in Jesus to provide. In my mind, this is the critical miracle in the story. With the help of the little boy, Jesus shifted everyone's focus from scarcity to abundance. And the faith of the crowd is rewarded. In my Southern Baptist upbringing, I was taught that Jesus kept breaking the loaves of bread, but they never got smaller. But now I like to think of this miracle differently, in a way that invited everyone to participate. I believe that as Jesus was breaking the loaves into smaller pieces and handing those out, people came up with the food they had, and they put it in the baskets. More and more people came, and there was so much food by the end that 12 baskets were filled. Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. Likely by the end of the feast, it was dark. And in that wilderness place, it would have been too dangerous for people to make their way back home. Can you imagine the sounds of 5,000 people there, spending the night under the open sky? A few lie awake murmuring about the miracle they've witnessed. And regardless of how we believe that Jesus accomplished this miracle, he has provided their dinner, starting with only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Most of the crowd sleep peacefully, knowing there will be breakfast in the morning. Scarcity has turned into abundance. I'm reminded of a story that I read in my imagination and resilience class last fall, from the book Sleeping with Bread, Holding What Gives You Life. During the bombing raids of World War II, thousands of children were orphaned and left to starve. The fortunate ones were rescued and placed in refugee camps where they received food and great care. But many of these children who had lost so much could not sleep at night. They feared waking up to find themselves once again homeless and without food. Nothing seemed to reassure them. Finally, someone hit upon the idea of giving each child a piece of bread to hold at bedtime. Holding their bread, these children could finally sleep in peace. All through the night, the bread reminded them, "Today I ate, and I will eat again tomorrow." Gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost. COVID and the last administration have damaged our psyches as individuals, as a nation, and as a global community. As we move forward, may we focus on the abundance in our lives and in the lives of others. There is no us versus them in God's realm. Life is not the Hunger Games, where we rush the cornucopia for weapons to destroy each other. God's realm is like sitting with thousands of other people in a desolate place late in the day. Our stomachs are rumbling, but we know that the divine will provide, and in abundance. gather up the leftovers so that nothing will be lost.